Yo, what's up, Ryuji here. What I want to talk about today is my personal journey of personal development and how that's kind of like an unending pursuit of truth. Every time you think you arrived at a final truth, but then you realize that you didn't. Like when I first decided to pursue happiness, so to speak, when I first decided to understand like, okay, like what does it actually mean to be happy? Like how can I actually become happy? I went through a lot of different phases in that journey, and when I first started, and I think this is kind of like what society conditions us to believe, is that you believe that if you get all this stuff, or if you're in a certain position, then you're happy. It's like the external dictates the internal. For example, you tell yourself, if I have a lot of money, I'll be happy. If I live in this place, I'll be happy. If I live in a house like this, I'll be happy. Or maybe if I have a partner, I'll be happy. Maybe if I have a girlfriend, I'll be happy. Or whatever it is. You tell yourself all these things, these external things, are gonna make you happy. Now, kind of the first lesson I learned throughout my journey is that that's not true. And I didn't experience that firsthand because I didn't have all these things. So it's not like I could be like, oh, I got all these things and I wasn't actually happy. But what a lot of people were saying was that, yeah, that stuff doesn't bring happiness. And so I started identifying happiness as being linked to what you do. And I was like, okay, it's not about what you have, but it's about being in the process of progress, following your passions, doing the things that you want to do, et cetera, et cetera. And that's when I started pursuing things like productivity. How can I become more productive throughout my day? How can I do more things? How can I self-educate more? How can I follow my passions more? How can I be more aligned with my values, my purpose, stuff like that? And I really started identifying this happiness thing with what I do. And that was cool, and I did that for a long time. And what you'll find is that when you think that is kind of like the ultimate truth, you'll pursue that really hard. So when I thought that was what happiness was, I basically pursued that pretty hard. And that's why I spent a lot of time trying to understand, how can I do more things in the day? How can I learn faster? How can I do all these things? Because I really thought that the doing was what was gonna make me happy. Now then eventually I shifted my perspective again to happiness is not about what you do, it's actually about how you live. And by that I mean that it's about being present, about living in the moment. And I thought that living in the now is the key to happiness, because most of the time we spend our days like thinking about the past, thinking about the future, thinking about your past memories. Like last weekend was so nice, or maybe you look forward to something in the future, like, oh, this upcoming weekend's gonna be so nice. I can't wait for summer. I can't wait for this to happen, things like that. So you don't live in the moment and you're not present right here. And I thought that if I could only bring myself to be present right now, then that would make me happy. And that's when I pursued things like meditation, or just understanding things. I read a lot of books on that, trying to understand things like what does it mean to be in a flow state. I thought being in a flow state is what brings you, like that's the ultimate meaning of what it means to be happy, stuff like that. And so I pursued that for a really long time, and I thought that was the absolute truth, so to speak. But then I actually changed my perspective again, and I came across this idea that happiness should be unconditional. Because if you think about the thing, for example, that you are happy when all these previous things I've been through. I'm happy when I have all these things, or I'm happy when I'm doing all these things, or I'm happy when I'm present to the moment. All these things basically assume that happiness is conditional upon something. It's either conditional upon having stuff, doing stuff, or being present. And the thing with that is that if you think about that further, that assumes that if you do nothing, you are unhappy. It assumes that, well, if I don't do anything, if I'm not growing, if I'm not present, if I don't have all this stuff, well, I'm not going to be happy. And why should that be? Why should that be the assumption on which you base your whole idea of what happiness is? Why can't we just assume from the beginning that we are happy right now? And so I came across this, and so I shifted my perspective again. And now that's kind of where I'm at in my journey. And I think that the journey of attaining happiness, so to speak, is to let go of everything. Let go of your ego, let go of all your past traumas, all your past experiences, letting go of, detaching from your emotions and so on and so forth, so that you kind of return to your natural state of being, so to speak. Sounds very woo-woo now, but that's what I believe right now. And so I kind of want to talk about the journey because I thought it was interesting how, and it was not just for that, for other things too, for things like productivity. There are I went through different phases where I believe that different things are kind of like the ultimate truth. So like, I would think, okay, this is what the ultimate truth is, and I would pursue that, but then I would be like, wait, actually scratch that. There's this other perspective that I think is better and more accurate, and so I'll go pursue that. And I think that's how the journey of growth goes, or that's how it's gone in my experience at least. And I kind of wanted to talk about that if you're a person who's also on the journey of personal development, because that's something that you might go through also. Now, I think the reason that kind of my journeys in these different areas went about that way was basically because what I committed to was the idea, the underlying framework of what I wanted to do. So for example, when I was pursuing happiness, I was pursuing just that, the feeling of being happy. That's really what I was pursuing from the very beginning. And so I was never, even though like I had different phases, for example, at the beginning when I was like, I want these things, or I want to do all these things, well, I was pursuing those things, but I had the end goal in mind. And so I never got stuck in any one way of looking at things, because I think there's a distinction to make between the end goal and the means you take to get there. So while your end goal might be like attaining happiness, then throughout your journey you might have different means. And I think sometimes it's easy to get kind of caught in this thing because you really believe in that moment. In the moment when I believed that it was all about what you do, in that moment where I believed it was all about being present, I really believed that was kind of like the ultimate truth. And so I think it would have been really easy for me to get stuck in that and stop changing my perspective, because I would be like, okay, this is what happiness means. It means to be present in the moment. And now I'm going to dedicate my whole life to being more present. And I could have easily got stuck into that, like I said. And I think it's important not to do that. And I think it's important to recognize kind of like what really is your end goal, and then recognize that there are different tools. And when you find these different tools, you can fully buy into them. One important thing in growth is that you want to buy into different ideas, because if you don't buy into it, then you can't pursue it, then you can't really reap the benefits and then evaluate it. But in any case, it's important to buy in, but at the same time, it's important to remain open to different possibilities and understand that, you probably won't reach ultimate truth. Now, it sounds really obvious, but in the moment, trust me, like for me at least, a lot of times it just feels like I really got it. I really feel like I got to the root of this. But what I found in my experience is that I could always dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And so I just think that's something important to keep in mind if you are on this journey of personal development. Anyways, thank you all so much for checking this out today. I really appreciate it. If you enjoyed this video, leave me a comment. I really want to know what you think. And subscribe to my channel. I would really appreciate that. But anyways, I'll see you all next time. Take care.